Well,
Madam Chair, I'd like to be recognized. I make a motion that we adopt the InFocus Math program and fully fund it from the 2013-2014 budget.
I'll second that.
Just wanted to
Motion,
make
I'm sorry, was to adopt the math focus.
the Math InFocus, which I believe is the name of that program.
Math.
Yes, fully fund it from the 2013-2014 budget.
And I seconded that.
And I would defer discussion to the presentation. I just think it's proper to get a motion on the table before we present the presentation. Thank you.
So you want them to proceed with?
Yes, I just thought it would be proper that we have a motion on the table before we start the discussion, which the presentation is part of the discussion.
Okay. I guess I got well out of my mouth. We have the most patient teachers on the face of the earth. I had an introduction, but there's going to be no introduction. These people have juggled 2 pilots this year. They have come up with a unified recommendation, which is for the adoption really of a world-class mathematics program. So a motion has been made. It is my recommendation that that program be adopted. And are we going to actually get to see pieces of the program?
We are definitely, and that's why the teachers are here tonight. To
You guys are
walk
the
us
best.
through
Thank you. Marge, the floor is yours.
So I will turn this over to Becky to start, and you'll see our agenda here.
Thank you. So we're going to try to move through this and get to the best part, which will be the teacher demonstrations. But first we want to just remind you a little bit about the Common Core and why we are in need of a new math program. We're going to talk to you a little bit. The principals are going to talk about the pilot process, our recommendation, and the research supporting our recommendation. And then we have Marianne Boucher wasn't able to be here tonight, but we'll have Carol Palusiak demonstrating some first grade information, Ellen Villela and Janet Gerard doing some second grade, Ellie Stetson at 4th grade, and Tara Henley at 7th grade. And then we'll talk about the program cost as well. So why do we need a new math program? Well, as I'm sure many of you have heard, and I know the board has heard several times, we have the new Common Core math standards that were adopted by New Hampshire in July of 2010, and those are expected to be fully implemented beginning next year. So our current programs that we have are Everyday Math, that's K through 6 at this time, and Mathscape in 7 and 8 do not meet the requirements of the Common Core. They don't meet the shift in content expectations, the focus is not there, and the level of rigor expected by the core is not there either. So what we're looking at as far as a shift from our current standards to the Common Core is really it's moving away from the answer getting that we're used to. You know, you go to math class and the whole goal is to get the right answer. And this is really moving away from that. And it's more about really developing the understanding of where that answer comes from so that you can take what you've learned and then apply it to new situations. So that's really what we're talking about as far as the shift in standards. So we're looking for that as far as shifting our program as well.
Thanks, Becky. We began that process, the pilot process, in the 11-12 school year by examining the new standards to get a feel how they were going to be different from the current standards that were used in the New Hampshire GLEs. We met by grade levels in the summer to examine the content standards so that we could really keep in mind the core as we were starting the 11-12 school year. During that year, teachers used our current programs, Everyday Math at the K-6 level and Mathscape at the middle school level, keeping the Common Core in mind to help determine whether we'd be able to teach to the new standards of the Corps with our current programs. It was discovered through that examination that the program simply would not meet the needs of the Corps. And it just happened to be that this is that normal time for us to be taking a look at our programs and what we have in district. Thank you. Summer 2012, we met to unpack those Common Core standards and get a better understanding of what students and teachers would be doing in the classroom if we were to be meeting the expectations of those Common Core standards. We focused on the changes in content and instruction and the rigor that was really needed for the Corps. Our teachers reviewed those potential math pilot programs. There were 7 of them in total, and they used a curriculum analysis tool that had been developed to really analyze programs to see how well they fit in with the Common Core. As I said, there were 7 publishers. I was determined that we would go with 3 that would be piloted, 2 at each grade level, with the exception of grade 6, who piloted 3 programs. Those piloted programs are listed right up here. Math in Focus is the one on the left, and that's a K-8 program based on the most widely used program that's used in Singapore. And Singapore's curriculum was a key model in developing the Common Core standards in mathematics. Go Math, which is a K-6 program, the one in the middle, is written from the Common Core. It's organized around critical areas of Common Core at each of the grade levels. Big Ideas, the last one there, is the middle school program. And again, very similar to Go Math in that it was developed with the Common Core in mind and that idea of mathematical practice. Big thank you to our teachers. We've already applauded for them for being here this late. And you know, it was a very big undertaking on their part, piloting these 3 programs, and we're just so grateful that we have such dedication from our teaching staff.
Okay, so in 2012 and 13, 33 teachers implemented the pilot program across SAU 15. The pilot teachers participated in multiple professional development opportunities with their pilot program. Building administrators and district administrators were very proactive in visiting the classrooms, as we do all the time. We're really taking a long, hard look at visiting the pilot classrooms each day. Building students, parents, and teachers completed a questionnaire regarding the pilot program. And I wanted everyone to know that, again, as we move forward, this is a recommendation and decision that we made with people. On the next slide, I visited some of the teachers and the other administrators in the districts. We visited Alton, Dover, Epping, Washington, and Peabody, Mass. It really was very nice of them to open their doors and their arms and really give us a good background on all of the pilots. And it's something that we hope to do once hopefully this passes, that we open our arms and help these people out. Ongoing meetings. You know, we met probably every other week. We met with the publishers. We met with 15 teachers attend the Building a Global Math Community, sponsored by the New England Community Institute. And then what we did in April is with the pilot teachers, we met with the publishers, and after the end of that meeting, we met grade level or by school, and we came up with our first recommendation. Then once again, we reflected after that meeting, we came back, and then we met again, and we determined our recommendation. We looked at the questionnaire, and I just want to read 2 of these. First grade teacher in the district, I enjoyed this experience, as did my students. Although rigorous, I love seeing them think about their thinking. And of course, I'm going to read my grade 7 teacher, but the students are rising to the challenge, and I feel they are enjoying the rigor. Students feel that they are being prepared for high school. I also, so Ms. Wing and Mrs. Pollock also interviewed our first grade students, and that was a one-on-one interview. What we decided in the questionnaire, or as a recommendation, students, parents, and teachers preferred the pilot over the current programs. We have everyday math in our elementary schools, and we have Mathscape in our current middle school, currently in our middle school. Respondents found the pilot programs to be more rigorous than previous programs. Parents expressed a need for communication regarding the shift in expectations in for mathematics. I want to let you know, and I'll let the school board know, we hear that loud and clear. And this spring, before we leave school, we are going to be planning a parent night to bring the parents in and show them and communicate the program. And we have other opportunities that Mr. Barstow gets to his slides. And teachers expressed a need for concern for ongoing professional development to implement the new program. The criteria for selecting the program: Common Core alignment, content standards, standards for mathematical practice, the rigor and depth, the assessment, intervention and extension, the continuity, and this is something I can really address because the continuity coming up from the elementary schools and students are having that transition anyways, but to switch math programs. And whether that's switching math programs from grade 5 to 6, or we have a K through 6 program, and then we were switched through 6 through 7. We want the continuity all across the district, all across the Hooksett School District K through 8. Teacher, student, and parent feedback, and teacher support and professional development. We also look at intervention, and we look at an extension. So those are those students that are high-achieving students. We wanted to challenge them and extend their learning. And that was a big part of, as we reviewed these. So the recommendation is math and focus. And, I say this, and I thank you, Mr. Pearl, for making that motion. Tonight, this is a big thing. We're here May 7th. We've waited this out tonight because there's urgency to get this passed tonight. The urgency is that it's a solid program. We made a decision. Decisions aren't made easily when you tell people what we're doing. We made this decision with people. And we're all a big believer as the building administrators to support our teachers, to listen to our teachers. What is going to make you be successful? If we get this passed tonight, I know before we get this up, the big point is we're already having teachers come up to us and say, will we get the materials? We need the materials before we leave. We need the materials before we leave. There's an urgency with this. Next to the students, teachers are the most important people in the district. In order for our students to be successful, we've got to put our teachers in the best possible situation by giving them the tools before they leave this summer. So I'm up here strongly recommending this. They believe that this is the next step. We're in the job of developing the intellectual minds of children. They feel strongly about this program. We need these tools. We need this passed, and we need these tools in their hands by the 26th.
So my slides have to do with why math and focus. And as I forget which person talked about it, but math and focus is the United States version of Singapore Math, which is Singapore's top-rated math program. As Matt mentioned earlier, it's a K-8 program, so the continuity is there, and honestly, that is, I think, one of the major factors that got the teacher's recommendation, was that continuity. Singapore Math was the curriculum model for the Common Core, so the Common Core was, in a lot of ways, built after Singapore's math curriculum. And Math and Focus has more history, more data that really provides a proven track record compared to some of the other programs that we piloted. And then finally, Math and Focus provides some very strong supports. Focus PD, which focuses a lot on math background and teaching pedagogy. Some of the other programs provide PD based on the program itself. There are transition guides that are provided, online resources, and there's almost a culture, a Math and Focus culture that's growing in the state that provides just a networking community, kind of a place to get answers from people who are already implementing the program. So the backbone to this program has to do a lot with also do a lot with conceptual understanding, procedural fluency. The biggest thing, however, is concrete, pictorial to abstract pedagogy. We'll get into that a lot more, especially once the teachers give their presentation, and I'll actually speak to that a little bit more as well coming up. Singapore Maths frameworks. You'll notice that problem solving is in the middle. It's a sort of linchpin behind their program. However, the part that we noticed that is huge and it was really influential to us was that attitude section. That's pretty unique to math programs, and that really, it's all about thinking positively about math and feeling positively about math and trying to get over that that hump of, well, I'm not a math person. It really builds that problem solving, so math is for everyone. Some research behind Singapore Math. These are international studies. You'll notice on the bottom one, in 2009, Singapore students scored significantly above the international average in the PISA study, with a rank of number 2, while the United States ranked number 31 out of 66. PISA is the Program for International Student Assessment. And then the top one that's a little crooked is the TIMSS study, which is the Trends in International Math and Science study. Singapore scored first in both 4th and 8th grades in the trends in this study in 95, 99, 2003, and top 3 in 2007. So pretty strong track record here. The next quote, these two excerpts are from studies about places that are using Math in Focus or have used Math in Focus. The one on the right says this concrete to pictorial to abstract approach benefits all students, but has been shown to be particularly effective with students who have mathematics difficulties, mainly because it moves gradually from actual objects through pictures and then into symbols. So it provides a lot for some of the advanced learners, but it also provides a good backbone for struggling students in mathematics. So the most important study on this slide is the quote on the right, and it's a comparative study between students that are using Math in Focus compared to students who are not using that particular program. And basically what it says on the NIWA assessment, which is what we use in our district, students performed substantially, they made significantly more growth on NIWA if they were using Math in Focus compared to other math programs. So very briefly, again, the teachers will demonstrate these differences, but concrete, pictorial to abstract. It's a process that students will go through. The concrete is when you're practicing concepts with something that is tangible, whether it's pattern blocks, fraction bars, geometric solids. Students can actually touch it. It's the doing stage. It really imprints concepts, mathematical concepts in students as they're doing these activities with the tangible objects. The next stage goes to pictorial, and this is the seeing stage. So students move from becoming a little bit more abstract. It's sort of the middle phase. They're not touching the objects anymore, but they know that the objects that they see are or could be those objects that they touch. And then we'll move on to the abstract. The abstract phase is, again, where you're removing the visual objects and you're doing things more symbolically. This is the most advanced stage, I guess you could say, of learning these concepts. And I guess the teachers will show you a little bit more.
So as far as algebra and our advanced math classes, our advanced math class in grade 7 will remain, as will our algebra and algebra 1 classes. For grade 8, the Common Core standards are written, that the K to 7 standards really are a prerequisite for students to be able to take algebra in 8th grade. So it's going to take us a few years to get there, because remember, we have some gaps from what we've been teaching as far as the GLEs and the elevated level of rigor and the different concepts that we'll be teaching with the Common Core. But what we're talking about is taking our current algebra program, which you can see the titles of the chapters on the left, and we looked at Math in Focus for grades 6, 7, and 8 to see where are our current algebra topics taught within this program. So what will that look like? And as you see there, everything looks pretty good until you get to the two with asterisks, and that's quadratic equations and polynomials. And those actually fall in the Common Core in high school. So if we were using the Math in Focus program with our algebra students, we would need to supplement quadratics and polynomials. So what we're looking at is next year using our current algebra program with our students who are taking algebra, and where it's appropriate, taking pieces of Math in Focus and supplementing with that, or pulling those pieces in as it makes sense. And as we get to know the program more, and as our students are coming more prepared for the algebra, we'll see more of the Math in Focus come into our algebra classes. And then it could be, you know, I can't tell you the number of years, it all depends on what this looks like as we keep going. But then it would be more Math in Focus, and then we'd be pulling elsewhere to substitute in quadratics and polynomials, depending on what the high schools are looking for. Because remember, they're making this shift to the Common Core as well, so we don't know if their expectations may change for what our 8th grade algebra students are doing. And now we're at the fun part. So the first teacher I'm going to ask to come up is Carol Paluziak. Carol's in 1st grade. I believe she's going to watch the number bonds.
So in 1st grade, one of the big tools that we use to learn about numbers and to help develop the number sense for the children are number bonds, and that's the part-whole relationship. And it's really the foundation for learning the concept of addition and subtraction, understanding the relationships between numbers, and really building a number sense for the children so that they have that fact fluency and they're not just adding, they know 2 plus 2 is 4, but they're telling me why they know 2 plus 2 is 4. So we start out with the concrete. I have 2 cubes, you have 1 cube. When we put them together, how many cubes do we have? And just going through all those different explorations, they're discovering. They're taking, if I have this number, you have that number, when we put them together, how many do we have all together? And really, when we take these 2 parts and we put them together, what kind of whole is there? But it also bleeds into subtraction, because if I have this whole and I take some away, how many are left? And we just work so much with manipulatives to really build that number sense for the children, and then we can move into the abstract, and the abstract would actually look like this, either a picture of this or drawings of it, before we move into the pictorial would be a picture, and this would be the abstract, just writing the numbers in a number bond, which looks a little bit confusing at first, but right now my children are using this to break numbers greater than 40 apart, and they were doing 2-digit addition today, knowing that 30 and 32 was 30 and 2, plus 8, 2 and 8 make 10, and 30 and the 2. They were just breaking it down and explaining their thinking, because they had to explain their thinking to number bonds. This is an example of one other way that we explored the part-whole relationship with the number bonds. Is this balance is a great tool, and the children were just trying to find, if I have 1 part 5, what 2, or 1 whole 5, what 2 parts could make that whole, and trying to find that balance. And the balance also helped them. It's kind of like the equation side. They know the left side has to be the same as the right side, and when that's balanced, they know both sides are equal, and they were able to know an addition sentence on one side is equal to an addition sentence on the other side, whereas in the past I've always had 1st graders, the equal sign means that the answer is, and now they know the equal sign means the same as, is. 2 and 3 is 5. They approach it so much more differently. It takes away plus, minus. They understand that it's not just plus, it's not just minus, it's these 2 things put together make this. And it has helped them a lot with word problems too, understanding that it's not just plus here, if I have 2 more than you, oh, I'm adding when I'm doing that. So it's transferred a lot over into the word problems. And this is just an example of one of the ways that we use the number bonds, and we used it for addition and subtraction, but a way that, oh, well, if I'm doing kind of a word problem, and I know there's 6 altogether, there's 2 under this cup, how many are under the other cup? And giving them a chance to extend that number bonds aren't just 2 parts. Sometimes there's more than 2 parts to something. And actually, I'm coming back to that now because we're doing 3-digit addition, or adding 3 single-digit numbers, which is always a tricky one, but using the number bonds because they're latching right onto it. And this is just an example, another example that, this one, I love this because the kids, they had to explain their thinking. They had to say how they know what the heart is because they have to understand the two number bond. They have to understand the part-whole relationship. And I like some people with this one, but it's great and they've really been applying that knowledge because they've developed the number sense with the number bond. And this is my favorite one. My students did this end of September, beginning of October, and this is one where it's a novel situation. They've never seen anything like this, but we've explored number bonds so much that they're expected to take their knowledge and apply it in a novel situation and show true understanding of it. And I'm actually going to refer to Mrs. Pollock on this one because she has a little bit to add on this.
And Carol is being very fresh. As we have been going through this process and we were recommending this program, I set a goal that I would take all of the assessments from kindergarten through 8th grade before the beginning of the school year. And so this is part of the assessment. I passed kindergarten just fine. And this is chapter 2 of first grade. And I got stumped on this and needed a little bit of instruction. But now I do understand number bonds and I'm ready to go on to bar models. It's grade 2.
Thank you, Carol. And Janet Gerard and Ellen Villela for grade 2.
Okay, so along with the number bonds that were presented in first grade, second graders are introduced to a new tool called bar models to understand addition and subtraction. And this tool is designed to help them with multi-step problems. It also ties in with the Common Core second grade standard of adding accurately and efficiently. And you can see in this slide, and Mr. Barstow stated that we really need to take these students through the concrete and then the pictorial and the abstract so they can really understand how to do a multi-step problem.
And this shows how we introduce bar modeling with, we use a lot of manipulatives, not just with bar modeling, but through the whole, the whole program.
In each chapter, there are many hands-on activities. That way the children can collaborate. That way the children can collaborate and really use their knowledge and let us know their understanding and how they can apply what they're learning.
And you can see how user-friendly, student-friendly our textbooks are. Most of the time, though, we're not even using our textbooks. We just use our projector because everything that we have is online in school.
Through this, what we did was, Mrs. Malala and I partnered up our students, and right now we're in a unit on measurement. So we partnered up our students and we took them outside and transferred their knowledge of bar models into real-world situations. And the next few slides will show them applying their knowledge. What we did was, in inches, they have to jump, and they are going to measure, and then they're taking that, and they're applying that knowledge and using it, and collaborating, working together. And now they're taking what they know, and they're creating the bar models, and they're questioning and answering. And if you see, they're using the part-whole relationship that Mrs. Lydia had referenced. They're taking that and adding the two parts to find the whole. And then they're also taking that and truly showing us their understanding, taking that knowledge. They're asking questions, they're adding it, and then in the next few, they are at the bottom, they are actually writing. So we are really, truly amazed at how much they have shown us this year. They have taken what we've given them and really gone with the challenge, and we are very, very impressed. Not only are they showing us what they know, but they're able
And when we received our materials beginning of the year, we looked at it and we said, will they be able to do this? And they could, and they just rose to the occasion. It was amazing what we put in front of them. We hope we do too.
Ellie Stetson, I think she might be going to make you do some work too.
Okay. For fourth grade, of course, we will eventually have the benefit of all of that we've learned in kindergarten and first and second and third grade. And so in fourth grade, one of the things that we focus on is fractions. And that's chapter 6, I believe, in our program. And fractions is always a difficult topic once you start putting fractions together and taking fractions apart and subtracting that and doing things like that. So, I'm going to ask you to, first of all, look at these slides. And we have fraction circles, we have fraction stacks, which are not necessarily part of this program, but we have them in our classrooms, so we make use of them because they're wonderful manipulative. As you can see in the fraction stack picture over there, the whole is the black one, and then the next one is 2 halves make a whole, and then the next one will be thirds, so 3/3 make a whole. But they can also take them and mix them up so that they can see that a fourth and 4/8 and another fourth makes a whole. And so they explore that and they come up with their equations to make that work. And some of our students still need to work with the Unifix cubes because they're not quite as comfortable using fractions, and they've used those in grades. Okay? So we've talked a lot about concrete level and pictorial level and the abstract level. And at our grade level, we begin to explore some different language, such as 3/4 of 20. So by having a picture model or drawing a picture model, they can see that the 3/4 of 20, we have 1/4 here, oops, 1/4, 1/4, 1/4, 1/4. So the 3/4 of 20 would be 15. When they can see it, they can count it, etc. And then we take the bar modeling that they started in 2nd grade, and we start out with our unit bar model. And since this has to do fourths, they have to divide their bar model into 4 equal parts. And then each fourth would have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in each part. So 3 of those fourths would have 15. So the bar modeling, the reason I like the bar modeling for a number of reasons, and one is that we've always taught them to use the little manipulatives and to count and all of that. And then we encourage them to draw pictures. And then we jump them from pictures all of a sudden into the more abstract things at the higher grade levels. So having the bar modeling in between the pictures and the actual expressions that they use is a nice transition because they are drawing a more abstract picture than just a picture. So we really like that. So in fractions, a whole, of course, is exactly what we start with. And if any of you have a piece of paper out there, you might want to take it out. And I'm going to ask the school board to take one of the slates. We use slates all the time. Fortunately, we have a million of them because we used it in the everyday math program, and we can now use it in the Math in Focus program. So we'll save a little bit of money on that. So not much, but a little bit. So once you have your paper or the school board has their magic slate, I'd like you to draw me a picture of what comes to your mind when I say one whole. A whole that can be divided into equal parts. And I'd like to see your pictures. As soon as you have it, hold it up, please. Aha, I see something that kind of looks like a circle. I see a rectangle, any old thing that makes a hole. That stands for whole. I like yours back there too. Okay, any other pictures of a hole over here? Okay, so we see circles, we see rectangles. I'm not exactly sure what yours is. I can't quite see it. A heart, okay. So anything that that could be divided into equal parts could represent the whole in our math program. Okay, so if you have a whole, and if your whole can be divided into 8 equal parts, I'd like to see you do that. And hold up your slate. Excellent. Good thinking over there, Mr. Bairstow. And did you copy him? You did it on your own. Okay, very good. All right. So there's more than one way to represent a whole and to represent the 8 equal parts that you divide your whole into. Now, use your picture, and I'd like to see you write an equation using numbers to represent some part, something about your whole, and it has to equal the whole. Let's see what you might write. Make sure you use numbers, but you need to look at your whole. Your whole.
I don't understand.
All right. Can you read your equation, Mr. Bairstow?
8 times 1/8 equals 1.
8 times 8 1/8 equals 1 whole. Okay, and you have 1/8 plus 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 1/8 equals a whole. And you have an 8 of 8 equals 1 whole. You are a very advanced student. Okay, what do you have on your slate? Did you write your equation? Right at you. 4/8 plus 4/8 equals 1 whole. Okay, now you could go on forever, of course, having them write more than one equation that equals 1 whole. That's a good thing, okay? Now, let's see. Could you draw me a picture using your whole that would represent 3 wholes and 3/8? 3 wholes and 3/8. Thank you. 3 wholes and 3/8. Make sure the holes are the same. 3 wholes and 3/8. And I'd like to see you say 3 wholes and 3/8. Anybody else have one? She copied you. Well, I'm going to use this one right here for a second. Now, this one right here correctly shows 3 wholes and 3/8. And each of the holes is the same hole, right? And but that last one, to show the 3/8, has the same whole divided into 8 equal parts, and she has correctly shaded in 3 of those 8. Now, if she were to divide each of her other wholes into 8s, how many of them would she have to color in each one of those? 8. Okay, so 8 8s plus 8 8s plus 8 8s plus 3 8s would represent 3 wholes and 3 8s. Good work. Okay, next slide. Okay, now what we are teaching the kids to do is to be flexible thinkers with numbers. Okay, we want them to have good number sense and to understand how numbers work and how you can put them together and how you can take them apart. So we do challenge them to think of as many possible ways as they can to represent the numbers we work with. So working with one whole, the 1/4, 1/4, 1/4, and 1/4 makes a whole if you add them together. 2/3 and a third makes a whole. 3 eighths, 2 eighths, 4 eighths, take away an eighth would equal a whole. 21 divided by 7 by 3rd grade, where multiplying and dividing are basic facts. So 21 divided by 7, which is 3, take away 2 is equal to 1. And a fifth of 5 is equal to 1. That's sort of like your 1/8 of 8 that you did before. And then that last one, and I'd like somebody to check to make sure that that last one that I wrote is correct. And tell me, why is it correct? How do you know that it is correct or that it is incorrect? Is there anybody who can explain that last one? Anyone? Yes, can you explain that one?
We have, what? So you have the one at the beginning, but then you have 1/2, but when you subtract 2/4, that's the same as 1/2, so 2/4 takes away the 1/2. Then you have 4/5 when you take away 8/10, 8/10 is the same way as 4/5, so you're taking away the 4/5. And 35 over 40 is the same as 7/8, so you take that away and all you're left with is 1.
Which is fabulous. Congratulations. Okay. I'll give you 5 seconds to write your own equation that equals. Be as creative as you possibly can be, and hold up your slate. Mrs. Corcus, we expect you to do it.
As I said, my children get help from somebody other than me on that.
Okay. Can anybody think of a really creative way to show 1 better than any of these? Yeah. I have been what? I've been up since 5. Okay. So this could go on, of course, forever in a classroom, and if you do a little bit every day, eventually they get so they're really good at coming up with some alternatives. But what it proves to a teacher, as a teacher looks around the room at all the slates that are in front of her, is that that person right over there really understands fractions well. So does this one, but that one way out there has a very unusual equation. And so we kind of put that inside our head, and it's an instant formative assessment opportunity for a teacher. Okay? So making 5/3, 2/3 plus 1/3 plus 2/3 more would be 5/3. And I won't challenge you to make any more 5/3 tonight. This is the kind of thing we do every day. This was a picture I captured from somebody else's website. And it's using Math in Focus. And this way of splitting 5/3 up into 3/3, which is the whole, plus 2/3 is a strategy we use over and over and over again. It's called decomposing a number, but we're decomposing the number in a way that's useful. We're decomposing it by ones. Okay? And this one here, again, showing 5/3 of fraction pieces. Then moving to that bar model representation. And the hardest part of all for our fourth graders, which is a very big expectation for fourth graders, is where does that number belong on the number line? So transitioning from being able to play around with the numbers to actually placing it on a number line and getting it in order is challenging for a lot of the fourth graders. But it won't be after we use Math in Focus for a while. This one, I've never seen a representation like this before, where they took the actual 1/4 pieces, and they placed them on the number line. And they built it so that the kids can really see how that progresses when you add those numbers together. Okay, equivalent fractions is another thing we spend a lot of time on, where a half is equal to 2/4 and it's equal to 4/8 and all of that. So by visually seeing these things, drawing pictures of them themselves, splitting them apart, helps them to see what an equivalent fraction would look like. But generating them, the Math in Focus uses something called the multiplier and the divider. And so you start with a simple fraction like 2/3 in simplest form, and it shows that by multiplying the numerators and the denominators, you get an equivalent fraction, and then backwards, you do the same thing to go backwards. This is a typical question that we ask. If you have 3/5 and you have 11/10, what does that equal? And you challenge them to use everything that they've learned so far. They could use pictures, they could use the multiplication multiplier or the division one, and they change that. So can anybody tell me how to change that so that we could get an answer? How do you do that?
Well, 11/10 is a common denominator of 5, so you would take 5 times 2 is 10, and 3 times 2 is 6, so it would be 6/10 plus 11/10 is 17/10.
Is 17/10. Okay, so if you have 17/10, 17/10, what are you going to do to break that apart and down into simpler form?
So when you have to go least common denominator?
You've already got your least common denominator.
Well, no, when you got, your answer is 7/10, but really it's 1 and 7/10, because 17 goes into 10 one time, so then you have.
Okay.
1 and 7/10.
Okay, why is it 1 and 7/10?
Because you have 7 left over when you take the 10 away from the
So
whole
are
number.
you saying that 10/10 is equal to 1
Yes.
whole? And then you have 7/10 left over, so it'd be 1 and
Fourth
7/10.
grade math. After all, happy about that.
Yes, so breaking it apart into 1 holes or 2 holes or 3 holes, and then whatever's left over is left over. Okay? Now this one is really, I thought I was going to have a little bit here, but this one here is a little harder to understand without my being able to write anything. But there are 2,442 Class A and Class B seats at a concert. So Class A must be classy and Class B must be not so classy. Okay? So there are 2,442 Class A and Class B seats, and 2/3 of the total number of Class A seats is equal to 1/4 of the Class B seats, How many Class A seats are there? Anybody have solve it? You can solve it. You can't use algebra.
I'm not question. I was gonna go our model.
It's really easy with algebra, but it's not so easy
Go ahead,
with
do it.
Excel. So let's see somebody draw a picture. Miss Pearl, are you able to draw a picture over there? No. And Miss Lewis fell asleep. Give it a try, show me a picture, and then I'll. 420. And using a bar model is a really good idea.
We're rounding up, rounding down.
Rounding up or rounding down? No? Do you know the rules for rounding? I don't really think you need to round on this one. Yes, Mrs. Rogers?
Well, if I get credit for showing my work, I might be okay, but I see there's 1,662 Class A seats.
Can you hold up your slate so we can see how you solved your problem?
Oh, I don't want everyone to see it.
Oh, boy, you did a lot of math. Well, we will check that solution in just one moment. Mr. Harris, do you have one?
I have the top bars being 2442.
That is correct. The total is 2,442. That
And
is
then I broke
right.
it down into the bar into 4.
Okay.
Because Class A seats is a quarter.
Okay. I see
So
that.
oh, never mind.
But I missed one thing.
They don't make a whole.
And the 2/3 of Class A is equal to 1/4 of Class B. You got it?
I think Class A has 666 seats.
You do.
I do, because if you draw a rectangle for Class A, you split it into 3 sections because there's 3 of them, and then I drew another rectangle underneath for Class B. Yes, it looks exactly like that. And there's 11 sections altogether, so 242 divided by 11 is 222. So one section is 222, and so 222 times 3 is 666.
That is correct. If you start with Class A, and Class
I did not use algebra.
Class A talks about thirds. So you divide it into thirds and you show what 2/3 is. And then the rest of the column said that 2/3 of Class A was equal to 1/4 of Class B. So here's your 2/3 of Class A. 1, 2, 3, 4 times. Is that right? Okay. So how many of these little thingies, these little pieces, are there in all?
11.
11. So this total that Mr. Harris has very nicely represented over on the slate, 2,442, has to be divided into 11 pieces. 8 and 3 makes 11. And if you do the math, it is what? 222. And so Class A has 3 times 222, or 666 seats. That's my favorite one that I've seen so far this year. Okay, we're almost done. This is the last one. Thank you for being patient. This challenge, I haven't given to my class yet because it came out of the enrichment book. We have an enrichment book, a reteaching book, and a regular practice book. And this is kind of a hard one. Here is a square, and it's divided into many smaller pieces. What fraction of the square is the rectangle? And I'll leave you with that. I'll give you a copy of it so you have a nice, neatly drawn thing, and you can figure it out. So thank you.
Is it 1/4?
Ellie, can they keep the whiteboards for a minute?
What?
Can they keep the whiteboards for a minute?
You can keep the whiteboard.
So I'm Karen Lee. I teach 7th grade math here at Colley. I've actually taught here for about 8 years. I apologize. I'm extremely exhausted. I've been up since like 4, and I had to drive home and then come back. So one of the really awesome things I like about Math in Focus is the kids are actually getting very well prepared for 8th grade as well as high school, a very strong number sense, and there has been a lot of gaps that I have had to fill in this year because they haven't had it before. So I'm using the transition guide quite a bit, and we're moving a little bit slower than I'd like to, but here are some problems that we're going to take a look at. They like to scaffold us, and then it's the same thing up there, but I'm going to write on here so you can see what I would do in the classroom. And it would be bigger. If you're in my room, you would be able to see like all of it. So one of the things, once we get into chapter 3, we start looking at algebraic expressions. And we start with very simple expressions, and then we build from there. So this one is from chapter 3. So this is after we've done. It's after we've done some work with some simple ones. This is a little bit more complex. So it says, write an algebraic expression. When 1/5 of the boys left, there were still B boys and G girls who stayed to see a program. What was the total number of boys and girls at the beginning of the program? And often people are just going to write 1/5 B plus G. That's not the correct answer. So what I've had the kids do is take a look at it, try it out. This is very easy to do bar modeling, and I can show you how to do that, but if somebody wants to take a shot at what the answer is before anyone. I know, it's late, I know. It's 7th grade math. I had a student do this for me like a couple minutes before she got on the bus, and it took her like less than 2 minutes. She bar modeled it out, but I'm going to show you how we would bar model, and I'll show you what she wrote down. So if I start with, there were 1/5 of the boys left. There were still B boys left. So how many boys are left right now? Anyone? 4/5. So if I start with, here's all the boys. Okay. And we're going to pretend all my rectangles are even. Yes. So I'm going to draw my 4/5. So this is boys. Okay, but there was another 5th that is no longer there, so I'm going to draw that one in. Okay, what fraction of B is this that I just drew on? Anyone? It's not 1/5.
1/4.
It's 1/4. Very good, because D is these 4 sections right here. So this is 1/4 B. Okay. So this is how many boys are there right now. This is how many boys were there at the beginning. And then we have a rectangle. Here are our girls. This is G. So if I want the total number over there, I add B plus 1/4 B plus G, right? Which is 5/4 B plus G. Boys and girls, because we want to label what we're talking about, okay? And I'm going to leave it I know we like to turn things into mixed numbers, but I'm going to leave it as improper because when we're talking algebra, later on, it's way easier to work with improper fractions. So that didn't take us very long, very easy, very visual. We didn't make any mistakes because of the visual there, and this is what my student did earlier. And look at that, same answer. And that was before she got on the bus. So like, pretty impressive. Okay, so then we move on to solving algebraic equations. And this actually came from the transition guide. So this is actually something that they would do in 6th grade the year before, but because we haven't had the program, this isn't even something that my kids last year would have been able to solve. So that's very impressive. Right. So it says, in a swimming class, 2/5 of the participants are girls. There are 24 boys in the class. Find the total number of participants in the class. So I can write an equation. I'm an algebraic person. I can do that no problem. Some of you could probably write an equation no problem. However, there are some students, and I had one of my students who gets a little bit extra support do this one for me, and she drew a bar model, and she got the answer like this. So this was before she got on the bus as well. So if I start off, this is all my participants. So we're going to label this participants. Okay. How many sections should I split that into? 5. Why? I don't know 5. 2/5. Okay. So split it into 5, and we're going to pretend that all of my boxes are equal. Okay. So I know, because the problem says 2/5 of participants are girls, I'm going to label this girls. So if this is girls, that means this is boys. What else do I know? There are 24 boys, right? So therefore, I'm going to label here 2 here, 24. Well, 24, there's 3 sections. So if I do 24 divided by 3, that means each section is 8. So that's 8, that's 8, that's 8, that's 8, that's 8. So that means there are 40 participants. Okay, that was really quick. Well, the algebraic equation for this would be, well, if 2/5 are girls, 3/5 of, let's say, P for participants is equal to 24. And that would be the equation that we just solved. And they can solve this afterwards. They actually know how to solve this no problem. But a lot of them, the word problems, it's hard for them to figure out like what the actual equation is. The pictures like gets them to that point. And this would be the example of my student work. She did this like really quick before she went on the bus. Pretty much same thing that I just did. Like no coaxing or anything like that. She was able to do it without a problem. The last one I have that I would like to show you, this is from the enrichment book, and because, I apologize, at least it's up there, you can see it. This is from the enrichment book. We haven't gotten to this point yet because of the fact we are filling in those gaps, but the transition guys have allowed me to fill in those gaps, and they're doing it very well. But it says 2 notebooks and 3 pens cost $7. 1 notebook and 6 pens cost $8. What is the cost of 1 notebook and 1 pen? This is actually a system of equations. That means there's 2 variables involved, okay? Notepads and pens. This is something that normally would be an 8th grade curriculum, but eventually my students are going to be able to solve it with ease, and I'm going to show you how they can do that. Okay, so I'm going to, so this is a notebook, and it's supposed to be a little different size, pen, okay? These equal $7. Okay. And I also know that if I have 1 notebook, we're going to make these a little smaller just so I have some room. if I can cancel one of my variables out, either my notepads or my pens, I can figure out what the cost of the other one is. So I'm noticing right here that if I just double this, I'll have another notebook that I can cancel these out. So I'm going to make so instead of $8, the whole thing is 16. Okay, so if I cancel out, which is subtraction, I'm left with just pens. So 16 minus $7 gives me $9. And if I count, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So $9 is equal to 9 pens. So therefore I know right now that a pen costs $1. So, okay, that's great. Now what? Right? Now I can plug it back in and I know that, well, 7 minus 3, which for my 3 pens would give me $4. And there's 2 notebooks. So that means $2 is equal to 1 notebook. Okay. And the equation that we actually just solved, we did 2x, so we'll do 2n plus 12y is equal to 16, and we subtracted 2n plus 3y from it. And that is equal to 7. Sorry. And we end up with 9y equals $9. Or sorry, I changed my variable halfway through. I apologize for that. I was using y's and x's on here, just change it to n's and p's. But you can see how easy that was with the picture, and they'll be able to go from this to this without a problem. That's the pictorial abstract thinking that we're aiming for in 7th to 8th grade. And that's it.
So I know that when, I think it was Mr. Benson was talking, he talked a little bit about how later you would see how we were going to address some of the parent concerns and teacher concerns regarding education and professional development. So this is the professional development plan basically for next year that we have put together for this program. And as Mr. Benson also noted, we would also do a sort of parent information night this spring. But basically, we would start this June and do instructional strategies, professional training. In July, there would be administrator training, more grade level focused when teachers get back after summer vacation. In September, we would do more of the grade level focused piece as well as a parent university that would be put on by the publishers. In November, we would have experts come in and do demonstration lessons and do some coaching with our teachers. Another parent night by building in January, more demonstration lessons and coaching in March, along with another parent university. And in June, we take a look at our year and see what is it that we'll need to continue our success for the next year. Also ongoing throughout, there's something called Math and Focus Touch Points, and that's webinars that we can have customized specifically to a need that we have. Maybe we've come to chapter 4 in grade 2, and it's bar modeling time, and we're a little bit nervous about starting that process, and we'd like some professional development on that. We can have a webinar customized just for us. And the ask bar is having experts for Math and Focus available for us to call. or any advice for something that we may run into in the classroom at any point. And as well, teachers would have regular collaboration meetings with me as well. And the program cost is here, and what that includes are the student textbooks and journals, teacher editions, implementation guides. You can see a lot of it on the table over here. Reteaching, extra practice materials, all the things that you've heard the teachers talk about tonight. School-to-home connections, manipulative kits. It comes with 6 years of online student and teacher technology. There's a calendar map piece to it, partner games. There are a lot of components to this program. It's very thorough, basically. And that's it. Does anyone have any questions?
I have a question, and it's kind of threefold, and it doesn't come from any information I've obtained in this district. I actually have a friend in another district who has piloted the program, and one of the concerns when I asked her about it was that it's a very fast-moving program, and it's very stressful for some young students in first grade who are being asked to do things that they haven't been prepped for in kindergarten. That's part of it. The other part is I have a very good friend whose children, she has triplets in Dover, and they piloted the program for 2 years. And in the first year, it was very stressful for her math struggler and her average student. Her student who just gets math did fine. And in the second year, it was a lot easier because they were more familiar. And I'm wondering, or hoping that the district has some plan to help with this level of stress in transitioning. I think from the research that I've done, this is a phenomenal program, and I did go outside of the district to seek my opinion, to seek feedback from other people. I just hope that that is something that we, because there is a high level of stress. This is a very vigorous program from everything I've read, and where that just first year or two could be a little bumpy, and I just hope that
I know that some of the teachers over there are thinking, I know that some of the teachers over there are thinking, oh, that's what we thought at first too. And really that's part of what we thought up until April, beginning of April, when we learned basically that with this program, you don't move at that fast pace that you were talking about. You need to take the time and slow down and just stay with those concrete materials and move as appropriately through those stages. And we were moving too quickly in the beginning, and these teachers would be the first people, you can see them nodding their heads, these people would be the first people to tell you that we figured that out, and that's part of why you pilot a program, is to sort of figure out those things. So I think we've learned a lot that we'll be able to share with all of the teachers next year as far as how to move appropriately through. It's difficult transitioning from programs that are written for different standards than what this program is expecting as far as the standards. So it's not just making a leap from one program to another, it's from one set of expectations to another. And I think that's part of probably what they were seeing as well.
I really like this program, and one of the reasons that I like it is I'm hoping that with all the online stuff that comes with it and so forth, that it can be a program that can evolve. Because as being, a parent who has seen programs come and go, and the cost and the stress on the teachers to relearn the next program, I'm hoping that we can change this program as needed, as things evolve, and not have to, replace it certainly in a short number of years, because I think we've done that a couple of times.
And that K-8 piece, that's why that is so important. We want these kindergartners coming in to have this program all the way through 8th grade.
Thank you.
I also like this program, but I know tomorrow morning I'm going to get asked this question, so I'm going to ask you tonight. What does this program do, or how does this program handle special needs children? Is it applied? Do they have a separate module, or how does that work with special needs kids?
Well, I think the biggest piece is you saw that concrete pictorial abstract piece, and the whole program is really very well scaffolded. So it's not like that spiral that you've heard talk about a lot with Everyday Math, where you touch upon something and then you're gonna come back to it a little bit later and come back to it a little bit later. It really goes through a nice, slow and steady progression for each topic. And part of the materials that we have are, if students are getting that at the pace that you're going, there are materials to address that. If there are students who need it done a little bit differently, there are reteach materials for that as well. So it's different than other programs in that the reteach materials aren't the same thing, just different problems. It's really, it sort of helps you attack the concept from a different angle so that you're not just doing something slower. You're actually doing it a little bit differently to try to get at the different learning styles. Does that make sense?
Yep, and just a follow-up, Chair. So that's the learning process when it comes time to testing, because we're hearing all about the Common Core testing. How are the special needs kids, are they treated any differently with testing, given the same test? How does that work?
It's the same test for 90% of the population. But remember, this Smarter Balance test that we're talking about, that we've been piloting, it's not for the pilot, but it will be an adaptive test. So it really depends on how the student does on one question, what type of question they will get next. So that question is adapting for those needs. That particular assessment is adapting for those needs.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We've seen the cost of the program. I'm interested in what the cost of the consumables are looking like. Does this program have a lot of consumables? That's fine. I would just add that that's one of the concerns that I've had is finding numbers and numbers of workbooks. I'm hoping, being online a lot and so forth, that we could reduce the yearly cost to make it up with the initial cost.
Well, I think that was one thing that we also were considering, or what the yearly costs are going to be. This year, before we even implement the program K-8, we're not at a point to say we want to keep the math journals at grades K through 3, but maybe we don't really need them at 4 through 5. So I think we'll have a better idea of where we'll really need the consumables after we go through the program for at least 1 or 2 cycles. And then we can make some decisions that if we do have everything available to us online, what is it that we really need? So, but we understand that and took that into consideration as well.
And it's my understanding that all the online stuff is included in this price?
It is for 6 years, which is a nice surprise for us.
Excellent. Thank you.
Does anyone on the board have any other questions? Would it be the will of the board if any member of the community had a question that maybe they could ask?
Fine with me.
Fine with me.
Is there anyone in the community that has a question about?
Thank you.
If
My
you've
daughter-
stayed this long and you have a question, you might.
Sorry, I'm gonna make it short. So my daughter is actually piloting in this program.
On the microphone, please.
So my daughter is actually piloting in this program right now for 6th grade. I know that there's a lot of learning for the teachers and the kids when we do something new like this. She's pretty strong in math, so when I said, hey, I'm going to this presentation, what do you think about your math program? She goes, ooh. I'm like, well, you get good grades. She's like, it's a little bit wordy and it goes kind of slow. So are there enrichments as well that are in with this package? I did hear you say that, there was like a different approach if you were having difficulty, but I didn't hear too much of, could a teacher say, okay, she's kind of getting this, she needs to go a little bit further and we'll catch up?
Yes, there are the same type of materials for enrichment as well. In fact, the last question that Mrs. Henley did, when she did the 7th grade piece, that was an enrichment for 7th grade. So yes, there are enrichment materials as well.
So really, it sounds like it encompasses
I
a
believe it
very
does.
holistic
Yes,
approach.
I believe it does.
Yes, Mr. Sullivan.
Question, 7 years ago, we approved a everyday math program, and unfortunately, it didn't work out
based on what we presented, because we said this is what was going to be the thing that will fix the district and making sure everyone knew how to do their math when they left 8th grade. How is this going to fix or take care of the problems from everyday math that exists? How are we going to improve upon that? Because I don't want to go through a process and going, because I don't know how it changes when I learned math, but...
Right. I think the difference is I don't think we have any problems right now as far as everyday math. I think everyday math matched the grade level expectations that we had 7 years ago and are just finishing with this year. I think that the change is that we have a new set of standards, a new set of expectations, and we found that the program that we currently have doesn't meet those. So that was part of why we started looking. If everyday math had met the Common Core standards, we would be staying with everyday math. But the problem was that it didn't.
So if I just, so with the standards that have changed and the grade level expectations that have changed, have those been changed to address the concerns about the expectations we asked of a student 6 years ago and now? So I think it's a follow-up. So we keep changing because the expectations changed. But what expectations did they have back in 6 years ago that are now more involved or more?
I think I understand what you're asking. I'm not sure. But I think that you're asking basically what is the biggest change from our current standards to the new standards. And really there was more of a focus on getting the right answer or being able to perform an algorithm or a procedure to get an answer, rather than having the dual focus that you see in the Common Core of both getting the answer but understanding where that answer comes from and why, so that then you can apply that to the real world. And that's sort of pulling in that 21st century piece of being able to apply your understanding. And that's more of what this program and the Common Core in general support.
So it's not, the key is not to get the right answer, but it's the key to know how you got that right answer, which was actually a 21st century concept too, because if I didn't understand it with Mrs. Saunders, she made sure I understood it. And if I didn't, then we took care of that. So, okay, so that's the key, mastery and understanding the answer, not just, oh, I knew the answer. Well, fine, but how do you get the answer?
Exactly, and being able to talk about that, explain and apply.
So this takes care of that with this new math program.
Exactly.
Hopefully.
Hopefully.
Okay,
I think so.
Thank you.
I'm confident.
All right, thank you very much.
Yes, Jillian.
I was just wondering from a
You
parent.
need to come up to that side.
I taught in Manchester when Manchester switched over to everyday math. And I saw how scared the teachers were because it was so different. And I really think that made a huge bump in the road for because the kids saw that. How was it piloting this program? Was it really different like everyday math was when we first switched over to it? Or it is. So do you see that? Do you see the teachers and Hooksett being able to grasp onto this maybe easier than everyday math? Because I know in a lot of districts when they did that big switch years ago, it was a huge bump in the road, and the kids really sensed that.
I think that the big thing, and if anybody wants to take the mic, you can. I think the big thing that's different in this is that it's not just learning the program, but it's almost deepening the teacher's math understanding. Because I've heard from several teachers who are piloting throughout the SAU, that's why that works. You know, when they're talking about different algorithms. So I think it's different in that it's not really teaching you a lot of new algorithms for solving. I'm sure you're familiar with lattice multiplication and that type of thing. It's really more explaining the traditional algorithms and why they work, and you really build more of an understanding to get to those traditional algorithms. And there's definitely been a learning curve. If anybody wants to talk about it, you feel free. But
I would just say that my children were excited about it because I kept telling them how much they were doing that I'd never seen first graders do. I've taught first grade most of my career, and I just kept saying, you're doing this, that's usually the second graders would do that. And like, they were just so proud of all that they've accomplished this year so far, and they're excited about math, which I've never seen kids that excited about math.
Okay, it's just, they're so negative right now with the math program in place. The parents don't seem to like it, the kids sense that, the teachers are frustrated with it as well. I'm just hoping that this may make math more positive for everybody.
There will be frustrations. There will be, it's a learning curve.
One of the keys too is that professional development plan that I put up there too. There's a lot of it for next year, and it really is focused on instructional strategies over the materials of the program.
Okay, I just want to reiterate that I did live in Asia and was exposed at great length to this curriculum. Actually, Carol Zosiak was very correct. Kids are much more capable than what we even think they are capable of. And if we give them just a little bit and expect them to do just a little bit, that's all they're going to do. But it's very true. I saw 6-year-olds doing things that I wasn't doing in Underhill and learned in 4th grade. And it was very shocking. But with that being said, in my second grader being in Mrs. Schroer's pilot program, I have seen that, in a class of 20, I've met 6 of the peers with the parents, including my own daughter, has struggled very much, even though I'm a big proponent of the curriculum, because it is worldwide, and it will make us more competitive. Is there a plan in place under the current budget that will act as I recommended before during the public input for classroom assistants to actually, you can term it paraprofessionals if you want. Is that allocated for in the current budget to assist the teachers who have never been exposed to this curriculum before, nor have the students? With my own daughter suffering, and I've actually had to approach Mr. Verso, who was wonderful in helping my daughter. But again, I had to go around some hoops and speak to the principal several times because she was crying, very frustrated. She was a solid A student under everyday math. She became an F student under Math and Focus. Again, I heavily advocate for Math and Focus, but what I'm asking for as a parent who has lived in Asia is under the current budget, what exactly is allocated for classroom supports? So one teacher doesn't have to cope with 20 students all by herself. Is there anything in the line item budget for that, please?
The only thing that I can speak to as far as the supports for classroom teachers are the professional development plan that we have in place. That was not the same.
In class during the day while the children are being instructed.
There's none that I'm aware of.
I mean, in 1983, I was a first grader at Underhill, so 1984 I was in second grade. Even way back then, we had it divided, there were little round tables, and I don't know if Shannon or Carol has that now, but round tables where the 6 students that I've met in my daughter's second grade class, they would actually go and do the transition curriculum that you were speaking about. Maybe another little round table would be doing the enrichment curriculum, and maybe this table would be doing the co-instruction. I think that's a more clear picture, but I don't see one teacher managing 3 different levels of abilities in the class. So I guess before the board should approve such a measure as the whole curriculum, I think it's very important to look at the budget a little bit more carefully for exactly what kind of classroom supports the teachers will have. Not only, and I'm talking about general ed, I'm also talking about special ed parents are going to have to get more para supports. So with that, you're going to have to really evaluate the special ed budget because special ed kids are going to require those on 504s and IEPs. You're going to see some serious reduction in scores in your first, I would expect, full year, which will again keep hooks in school and need improvement. So without the provision in the budget for classroom assistance, or even the publisher promising contractually to conduct workshops for parents who are willing and able to have both the education and the time commitment to help the teachers in the classroom, I think it might be time to hit the publisher with a counter offer, counter negotiation. to say, hey, we want to spend over $200,000 on your curriculum, but we need more classroom supports because these kids that are suffering, they're going to develop a lifelong hate for math. And I speak for my own daughter. And I'm sure Mr. Barstow can speak to how good of a student she really is, a very happy little jolly girl who has had a bit of a struggle. I think if Mrs. Gerard had a classroom assistant for her, I think her life would be a lot easier, and I think my daughter and her 5 little friends who are struggling, their lives would be much better. I don't think that the kids who are necessarily not as strong in math, I think not being a math person is really the issue here, but how much support do they really get? I think that's my issue. I think if the school board is even willing to table the motion for another 2 weeks to 4 weeks, I think that's something that could be considered while they do more research. That would also give yourselves more time to contact the publisher to gain more funding. I think if anyone's an excellent negotiator on your team, if you need a good negotiator, I'm sitting right here, I'd be more than happy to help you for free to negotiate with them. Based on my own personal experience, my classroom observations, and also hearing other parental concerns as well. I think waiting another 2 to 4 weeks to give yourself time to bargain hard with the publisher is not necessarily life-altering, considering summer is not until the 3rd week in June. And I think that will give the teachers enough time to have their curriculum in time and all their supports in place by the end of the school year, so they don't have to be like, and also for get a little bit of negotiating done with the publisher.
Thank you very much.
Please don't let the publisher call the shots. It's all dollars and cents in business. I mean, I'm a business major, I'm self-employed. I'd really like to see some more action done in that way. That's my recommendation to the board tonight.
Thank you very much. Do any other members of the board have any questions for the administration on the presentation? We currently have a motion on the floor that was stated by Mr. Pearl and seconded by Mr. Liscard before the beginning of the presentation. Would you like to now discuss that motion? Would you like the motion reread to us?
I can certainly reread it. Personally, I've had enough discussion, but the motion that I made said, the motion that the Hooksett School District accept the Focus on Math program that will be fully funded from the 2013-2014 budget.
I guess, does that, I knew there was some talk on the email, does that differ in any way that was how to fund it? Is that the way that was presented? It was not. Can I ready to vote?
Do we want a roll call vote?
I think we should because it is a large amount of money.
Leanne, could you do a roll call vote for us?
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. I'm going to vote no on this motion. It's not that I'm not in favor of the program, but that's not how the original vote was taken when we took this motion back in November. It was my understanding that we anticipated fund balance spending half of the program and the rest of the program being purchased out of the 2013-2014 budget, and I am the person who made that motion. I need to stand by that decision. I'm voting no. I want everyone to understand it's not that I'm in favor, but I feel when you make a decision once, you have to stand by what your intent was. And my intent was to help, purchase half of the program using fund balance spending. You did a great job. Thank you. The motion motion carries 3-1.
Madam Chair, I'd like to thank everybody for that presentation. I'd like